Sometimes you don't miss them when you're awake. You go through your day, you work, you eat, you laugh, you talk to people, you tell yourself you're doing better. Maybe you even believe it. And then you fall asleep. And somehow, they're there. Not as a memory, not as a photograph. They're standing in front of you again, smiling, talking, touching your hand, looking at you the way they used to. And for a few beautiful seconds, you forget that they left. Then you wake up, and the room is dark. Your heart is beating faster. You reach for your phone without thinking. And then you remember. They're gone. The dream is over. And suddenly, you miss them all over again. If this has been happening to you, there is something you need to know. Dreaming about your ex does not necessarily mean you should go back. It doesn't mean they're your soulmate. It doesn't mean they are thinking about you. And it doesn't mean you've failed at healing. Sometimes, your sleeping mind is simply trying to finish a story your waking heart never got to finish. Her name was Sophie. For almost a year after her breakup, she kept dreaming about her ex. His name was Daniel. During the day, Sophie rarely thought about him anymore. That was what she told herself. She had deleted his number, stopped checking his social media, removed their photographs from her bedroom. She had even started dating again. Life was moving forward. But every few weeks, usually when she was stressed, she would dream about him. And the dreams were always strangely ordinary. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't asking her to come back. They weren't fighting. They were simply together, walking through a grocery store, sitting in a car, drinking coffee, laughing about something she couldn't remember after waking. And that was what hurt the most. Because the dreams didn't bring back the relationship. They brought back the normality, the feeling of having someone, the feeling of knowing what tomorrow looked like, the feeling of belonging somewhere. One morning, Sophie woke from another dream and whispered, "Why are you still here?" She wasn't talking to Daniel. She was talking to her own mind. The breakup had happened 2 years earlier. It wasn't dramatic. There was no betrayal, no enormous fight. Just two people who had slowly stopped being the right people for each other. Daniel wanted one life. Sophie wanted another. They tried to compromise. They tried again. And eventually, trying became exhausting. The final conversation lasted less than an hour. Sophie remembered sitting across from him, both of them crying, both of them knowing, neither wanting to be the one to say it first. Finally, Daniel whispered, "We can't keep hurting each other." Sophie nodded. And that was it. They hugged. They cried. They said they loved each other. Then they walked away. There was no villain. No one to hate. And somehow, that made the grief harder. Because when someone hurts you badly, anger can help create distance. But what do you do when you lose someone you still believe was a good person? What do you do when the relationship ended, but the love didn't disappear at exactly the same time? For months, Sophie tried to understand her dreams. She searched online. She asked friends. She wondered if dreaming about Daniel meant she was still in love with him. Maybe she had made a mistake. Maybe she should contact him. Maybe the dreams were a sign. Then, one evening, she called her grandmother. Her grandmother had been married for 53 years.
Sophie asked her. Do you ever dream about people from your past? Her grandmother laughed. Of course. Even people you haven't thought about in years? Especially them. Why? Her grandmother paused. Because your sleeping mind doesn't organize memories the way your daytime mind does. Sophie listened. Her grandmother continued. Sometimes a person in your dream isn't really about the person. What do you mean? You may dream about someone because of how you felt when you were with them. Sophie became quiet, because suddenly, that sounded familiar. Maybe she wasn't dreaming about Daniel. Maybe she was dreaming about safety, about familiarity, about being loved, about the version of herself that existed when she believed her future had already been decided. That night, Sophie opened an old drawer. Inside was a photograph. She and Daniel were standing on a beach. She remembered the day. It had been raining lightly. Their clothes were wet. They were laughing because the weather had ruined their plans. She looked at the photograph. Then something strange happened. She didn't miss Daniel. She missed that version of herself. The woman in the photograph looked fearless. She wasn't worrying about the future. She wasn't analyzing every word. She wasn't wondering whether the relationship would survive. She was simply happy. Sophie touched the photograph and whispered, I miss her. That realization changed everything. Maybe the dreams weren't asking her to return. Maybe they were showing her something she had forgotten, a part of herself. The next time she dreamed about Daniel, the dream was different. They were sitting in a small cafe. He was across from her. The same smile, the same voice, the same familiar presence. Then Sophie looked at him, and instead of asking him to stay, she asked, Are you happy? He smiled. I hope so. She nodded. Then she asked, Are you okay? He said, I think I am. And then she realized something. She was okay too. She woke up crying, but this time, the tears felt peaceful. The dream hadn't reunited them. It had separated them, gently, without anger, without another goodbye. Just two people who had once loved each other, finally becoming strangers again. Maybe that's what your dreams are doing too. Maybe you're not dreaming because you need them back. Maybe you're dreaming because there are emotions your waking mind never had time to process. A relationship doesn't disappear simply because the relationship ends. Your brain stored thousands of moments. Their voice, their face, their smell, the sound of their laugh, the way they said your name, the routines, the places, the songs, the little habits. For a while, those memories are connected to everything. So when you sleep, your mind can open old doors, not because you should walk through them, because they're still part of the house you lived in. One night, Sophie had the most painful dream yet. She and Daniel were back together. Everything was perfect. They were planning a vacation. They had moved into a new apartment. They were talking about the future. Sophie felt completely happy. Then she woke up. And for several seconds, she didn't remember. She smiled. Then reality returned. Her smile disappeared. She cried for almost an hour. Not because she wanted Daniel specifically, because the dream had given her something she had been grieving for years. a future that never happened. That was the grief she had never named. She hadn't only lost a person, she had lost a possibility. The wedding that never happened. The home they never bought. The children they never discussed seriously. The vacations they never took. The older versions of themselves they would never become together. Sometimes we don't dream about our ex. We dream about the future we thought they represented. Sophie began writing down her dreams. Not every detail, just one question. What did I feel? The answers surprised her. One morning, safe. Another, chosen. Another, young. Another, loved. Another, home. Almost never did she write, I want Daniel back. That distinction became incredibly important. Because she had spent so long believing the person in the dream was the message. But perhaps the emotion was the message. She didn't necessarily want him. She wanted to feel safe. She wanted to feel chosen. She wanted to feel at home. And those feelings didn't belong exclusively to one person. If you're listening to this tonight because you still dream about your ex, don't panic when you wake up from another dream about them. Don't immediately reach for your phone. Don't search their name. Don't check whether they're online. Don't interpret the dream as a sign that you need to contact them. Give yourself 10 quiet minutes. Take a breath and ask, what did I feel in that dream? Was it comfort? Loneliness? Regret? Safety? Desire? Fear? Nostalgia? Sometimes the emotion will tell you more than the person ever could. And if this channel has become one of those quiet places you come to when your mind gets loud, subscribe now. Make this your place for those late night moments, for the memories, for the heartbreak, for the dreams you don't know how to explain, for the nights when you need someone to put words around feelings you can't name. Subscribe and stay here. Because we're not here to tell you to just move on. We're here for the messy middle. The nights when you're healing, but still remembering. Months passed. Sophie still dreamed about Daniel occasionally. But the dreams changed. At first, she woke up devastated. Then curious. Then neutral. Eventually, she could dream about him and go back to sleep. That was when she realized something. The dream hadn't changed. She had. The person in the dream was still Daniel. But she no longer needed the dream to mean anything. It could simply be a memory passing through. Like a song playing in another room. You hear it. You recognize it. Then it fades. One night, almost 3 years after the breakup, Sophie dreamed about him again. They were walking along the beach. The same beach from the photograph. The sky was gray. The ocean was quiet. Daniel was beside her. They walked without speaking. Then he stopped. Sophie turned toward him. For a moment, she expected him to say something important. Instead, he simply smiled. And Sophie understood. She didn't need another conversation. She didn't need another explanation. She didn't need to know what would have happened if they had stayed together. She didn't need to rewrite the ending. She looked at him. Then she turned toward the ocean and kept walking. Alone, but not lonely. She woke up before sunrise.
The room was quiet. Her heart felt strangely light. She looked at the clock. 5:17 a.m. She smiled, then whispered, "Goodbye." Not because she was still waiting, because she finally wasn't. There may come a night when you have the same experience. You may dream about your ex. You may wake up and feel that old ache. For a moment, you may wish you could return to the dream. But before you reach for your phone, remember this. Dreams can reopen memories. They don't have to reopen relationships. Missing someone in your sleep doesn't mean you need them in your life. Remembering love doesn't mean you made the wrong decision. Dreaming about someone doesn't mean they're thinking about you. And waking up sad doesn't mean you're back at the beginning. Healing isn't measured by whether you ever dream about them again. It's measured by what happens after you wake up. Do you chase the memory? Or can you let it pass? Do you reopen the conversation? Or can you put the phone down? Do you ask what the dream means? Or can you simply say, "That was a memory," and breathe? Because sometimes your heart doesn't want the person. It wants the feeling. Sometimes it wants the version of life you had. Sometimes it wants the certainty you lost. Sometimes it wants to go back to the moment before everything changed. But you cannot go back. And perhaps you don't need to, because the things you miss are not gone forever. You can feel safe again. You can feel chosen again. You can fall in love again. You can laugh without wondering how long the happiness will last. You can build a home that feels like home. You can wake up beside someone someday and realize you are no longer comparing them to the person you once lost. And perhaps, most importantly, you can become the person you were searching for in someone else. Sophie eventually stopped keeping the photograph in her bedroom. She didn't throw it away. She moved it into a box. There was something peaceful about that. She wasn't erasing the past. She was giving it a place. The past didn't need to live beside her bed anymore. It could live on a shelf, in a box, in a memory, somewhere that didn't control her mornings. And that is what you can do with your dreams too. You don't have to fight them. You don't have to fear them. You don't have to turn them into signs. Let them come. Let them pass. Your sleeping mind is allowed to remember, and your waking self is allowed to continue. If you have been quietly listening to these stories night after night, I want you to subscribe before you leave. Not just because you enjoyed this story. Subscribe because there may be another night when you wake up from a dream about someone you thought you had finally forgotten. There may be another night when the memories return. Another night when your heart feels heavier than it did yesterday. And when that happens, I want this channel to be somewhere you already know. A quiet place. No judgment. No pressure. No pretending. Just stories for people who are healing things they rarely talk about during the day. Subscribe now and become part of this little nighttime community. And if this story described something you've been feeling, stay with us. There are more stories waiting for you. More reminders that you can miss someone without needing them back. You can remember without returning. You can dream
without reopening the door. Years later, Sophie looked back at the period when she kept dreaming about Daniel. She used to think those dreams meant she wasn't over him. Now she understood something different. She wasn't failing to move on. She was processing what mattered. She had loved someone. She had lost someone, and her mind needed time to reorganize a life that had once included him. That's all. There was nothing mystical about it. Nothing wrong with her. Nothing broken. Just memory. Just emotion. Just a heart learning that the past can remain meaningful without remaining present. And maybe that's what your dreams are trying to tell you tonight. Not go back, but remember. Remember what you learned. Remember what you needed. Remember what you gave. Remember what you survived. Remember who you were. And then let yourself sleep. Tonight, if you dream about them again, don't be afraid. If they appear in the doorway, let them. If they smile, let them. If you hear their voice, listen. And when you wake up, don't chase them. Don't check your phone. Don't search their name. Don't ask whether the universe is trying to tell you something. Just place your hand over your heart. Take one slow breath and say, "It was only a dream." Then,
And I am still here. You are here. Your life is here. Your future is here. And there are still chapters you haven't lived. There are still mornings you haven't woken up to. There are still people you haven't met. There are still places you've never seen. There is still a version of you waiting on the other side of this healing. So if your ex visits you in your dreams tonight, let them be there for a moment. Then let the dream end. You don't have to follow them into the past. You can stay here, in your room, in your life, in your future. And perhaps one morning, you'll wake up after dreaming about them, and instead of reaching for your phone, you'll smile, because you'll finally understand. The dream wasn't proof that you still belong together. It was simply proof that they once mattered. And someone can matter without being meant to stay. Someone can live in your memories without living in your future. And you can love what once was, while finally becoming excited about what comes next. So close your eyes. Let the night become quiet. Let the memories pass. You don't need to solve them. You don't need to understand every dream. Just rest. Tomorrow belongs to you. And whatever happens in your dreams tonight, when morning comes, you get to choose where the story goes next.